So it's been about a year since I did my review of I Am Not Starfire, where I basically tore a new one and decreed assault on all five senses. And most of the comments that I got on that video kind of mostly agreed with me, with a few dissenters. But the main people who dared defend the book defended on just the premise of this book's not for you. See, don't you get it? This book just wasn't made for you. And despite the fact that, it lacked coherent plot, dialogue written as if it was spoken by normal human beings, a protagonist that was in any way likable, or story flow or structure that made any sense at all, it just wasn't for you. So I kind of figured, I know this isn't my cup of tea, but at the same time, I can just recognize a garbage comic when I see one. But it got me thinking further. With the economy heading more and more into inevitable recession, and fewer people, or more people, having fewer dollars to spend on their comic book habit, how is the comic industry going to react today in the economy that we're going to be facing? See, back in the last time we had an economic downturn this severe, the comics industry was still skating on the momentum of the 1990s comic boom, where you had Image Comics just founding, you had Spawn, you had X-Men #1, still the highest selling comic book of all time. So while sales had dwindled in that time, there was still a lot of momentum carrying it forward. But the comics industry today is a bit different. Gone are the sales juggernauts, gone are the books that can bring in sales in the millions, replaced with this weird just brand of intersectional heroes. And I'll never forget when the original Avengers movie came out, and people hungry for Avengers content, having just seen the movie, rushed to the comic book stores. And what was the offering that Marvel had put on the shelves? This Avengers book. Low effort, no background, dark colors, featuring a team that, if your only knowledge of the Avengers, what you had just seen on the silver screen, you wouldn't recognize. Who are these heroes? If you're not initiated in Marvel, who are these people? Who's this girl in front? Why is Thor a girl? Who's this guy with Captain America's shield? Why is Spider-Man wearing an odd costume? And who are those two flying people in the back? Marvel had the opportunity to put their big three on full front display and have people hungry for Avengers content coming into the stores and buying these books by the dozens, but they didn't. They had the chance to create a new audience that day, that moment, but they didn't. It's still, in my opinion, one of the greatest missteps Marvel's ever made, and I think they're still paying dearly for it now. More and more, the comics industry seems to be putting out more books that aren't for you. I don't know who they are for, but they're not for me, and they're not for you. They're for this person or that person. And if it's for that person, then it's not for this person. You see what I'm saying? Every book seems to be for a small audience while ostracizing all the audiences around it. There's no broad appeal. What comic is it for everybody? What comic can I recommend to anybody and they can pick it up and that they'll enjoy it? And then let's not even get into the plague of politics in comics. It still haunts us to this day. And when you put politics in comics, you are dividing automatically 50% of the country, and you're hoping to derive positive sales from the 50% that are left. And something tells me that this particular cover is not going to age well, Mr. Larson. The other problem you have is just the low effort state of comics these days. More and more comics seem to have this, coloring book art style, or books with or characters with questionable anatomy, no backgrounds, faces that don't make any sense. What the heck is happening with Squirrel Girl and Captain Marvel's faces? And then that Green Lantern, I'll never get over. In the middle page, the girl with the perfectly flat head. I just don't understand it. These books were given to an editor, and an editor signed off on it. It went to print. Resources were used to make these comics, put the ink on the paper, and get them to comic shops, and then they expected these books to appeal to people visually. Comics, last I checked, is still a visual medium. You have to do the work. There are plenty of people out there who aren't drawing comic books professionally that have far more talent than these people that are. The Rippaverse just recently, at the time of this recording, hit and is zeroing in on $3 million in sales in their first comic book. That shows that there are still fan bases out there that are hungry for content that responds to what they want, which is just an escapist superhero adventure, not this identity politics drivel that's being droned down on us now. And part of the problem is the industry is more rot than whole these days. More and more of the creatives that run these studios have supplanted it with their friends, and they're all like-minded. They're not making books for you. The books they're making are for them. They're not for the fans or for the creators. The creators aren't the ones that spend the money on these books. The fans are, and they don't understand that. And I think at this point, we just need to understand and come to grips with the fact that they won't understand that. So unless the corporate overlords that control these companies come down, I really don't see any of the studios starting to see the light and starting to make books that people want, make books that are for people and fans so they can start spending money. See, the interesting thing is you can have a book like Squirrel Girl out there that appeals to a small niche audience and doesn't sell that many copies, but it's okay because it's surrounded by 12.5 books that do sell a lot of copies that can make up the cost and sustain the company as a whole. The comic book industry still, I believe, is capable of great things. And it just needs to remember that. It needs to start putting forth the effort. It needs to start thinning out its ranks and replacing it with people who know what they're doing, who can put out a decent product. The people who can write, people who can draw, people who can listen to the fans, and people who understand the medium and the world in which they've been given to play in. The days of modern comics, in my opinion, I think are coming to an end, or the industry is going to come to an end. It's one or the other. I still am of the school of thought that at least Disney will never let Marvel fail, because I don't think that they could bear having the failure of that imprint on their corporate resume. So I think they're going to keep them going no matter what, but they're going to have to start making some decisions if they want to see that company start turning a profit. Same with DC, same with all the others. And I do believe that eventually some studio is going to respond to this, understand what they need to do, and start making comics for the fans again. And there's going to be plenty of studios that don't. They're going to stick to what they're sticking to now. They're going to keep putting out comics that aren't for you, and they're going to go under as a result. Play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. And that's pretty much, I think, going to be the anthem of the comics industry for the next 5 or so years while we pull ourselves out of this little downturn that we found ourselves in. But anyway, that's just kind of my opinion and rant on this whole subject. But I want to know what you guys think. Do you think the comic industry is going to survive this economic downturn that we're seeing? Or do you think this is going to be it? It's kind of coasted along because it's been putting out this substandard product for this long, but people have had money to spend on it still. So it's kind of found a way to be okay. But now that it's not going to have people have less disposable income, are they still going to be buying things like Captain Marvel? We'll have to wait and find out. I'm very curious, and I really want to know what you guys think. So let's talk about in the comments below. While you're down there, do all the usual YouTube stuff, like, subscribe to the channel if you're not already a subscriber. Share the video with your friends. We can help the channel grow that way, help the community grow. I really love interacting with you guys in the comments section. So I'll be there looking for what you guys have to say and your takes on this, and I will talk to you on the next video. See you then. Bye.